Welcome to Glamorous Turin, audience. Yeah, I'm not there face to face with you, but the benefit to that is that you're not catching my cold. So I understand you're having an event on the future of technology there, a subject dear to my heart. And what are you talking about? Well, the future, to my view, is just history that hasn't happened yet, whereas technology is stuff invented since I was born, kind of by definition. So, if I am frank in telling you about the future of technology, I think I should be in the camp of Clement Edgerton. Guy wrote a book called Shock of the Old, which points out that most future technology is past technology, and even the most important technology is stuff that's been around for centuries. We just don't call it technology because that's just kind of a verbal distinction. But nevertheless, if you're a working futurist, which I am, you need to have some kind of, obligatory pitch there. I mean, some kind of general narrative about the future of technology. And mine, and I have one, of course, and mine involves ubiquitous computing and industrial design, which are things of great interest to me. And I wrote a book about 5 years ago, which is about a concept I called spimes. And since I'm only speaking to you for 15 minutes, I don't really have time to go into this. It's not a big problem for you to find out about spimes. I mean, there's a book about spimes, and my blog has this topic called Spime Watch, and Vimeo and YouTube have all kinds of spime videos that look sort of like this. But spimes are kind of a trend spotting notion which exists within about a 30-year time frame. And the scheme there is that there is a digitization or a virtualization of 6 things: design, identification, fabrication, tracking, searching, and recycling. And it's all wrapped up in a cloud of metadata. And it takes about 30 years for this to occur, or 25 now. And it radically changes the human relationship to objects. It changes this at least as much as mass production or mass media. And that was my thesis in this little design book that I wrote. And, I'm not sure if it's going to work out or not. It's kind of a theory, but it helps me to, study things that I think really are important and are of interest. Just to concentrate on things that I might not have seen otherwise, and keep my mind focused on major trends, which obviously are important: design, fabrication, search, etc. That's certainly certain to keep me interested for whatever is left of my personal future. Now, the problem with kind of grand hand waving, visionary, futurist notions like spimes is, first, they might be too vague to be wrong, and second, they might be too obviously true to be bothered with. So I spend a lot of my time trying to figure out if there's something, obviously wrong with the idea, or something going on that's sort of counterintuitive that suggests that it might really be happening. And, obviously it's an idea which is profoundly repulsive in some ways. And the idea that like data about things might become more important than physical things is annoying to us in some ways. I mean, it's almost like having your conference speaker appear on a screen instead of being an actual speaker. I mean, it's cheap in some ways, and it's like obviously convenient. It's like way digital, but obviously there's kind of a rip-off element there, and there's something kind of creepy about it. It represents a kind of financialization or virtualization of heavy industry, and we know that doesn't work out all that well. We sort of had that proved. But, I'm looking for clues about how this process might work out in real life and what it would look like if it really started manifesting itself. So, I don't want to tell you to go read a book I wrote 5 years ago. Instead, in the brief time that I have with you, I want you to look I want to urge you to look at a trend which I have discovered fairly recently, which I think kind of ties into my sort of wild grand scheme there. And, you know, I mean, what do I like in this? What I like is stuff, I mean, a guy like Matt Jones, who's, a British designer with the company Berg in London. And I follow their antics very closely. I love Berg, and they're kind of people I follow. Matt Jones said that in the future, the near future, industrially designed products become attention anchors for a new virtual, actual, resilient thing infrastructure that is legible, discoverable, and repeats up the stack. All right, I know you didn't follow that, but I in fact followed that, and I thought that was one of the coolest things I had ever heard. But, to normal people, or even just to most of us, that statement is almost useless. And what you really need is something more in the way of like some real life indicator is how a thing like that Jones statement might actually work out in real life. Now, I think what we've got going on at the moment is a small groundswell and kind of network-based social movements that are desperately trying to escape the finance crash. And more specifically, what they're trying to do is sort of transcend financed consumer activity. And it's not enough to say that these are bright young people on the internet who've gone broke and are realizing they can't buy things and are desperate to adopt to things in a new way. That's what it looks like, but that's not what actually is going on. So let me just give you a few little Google things here to sort of put into the hopper. This is my takeaway for this presentation, all right? The 100 Things Challenge, Exile Lifestyle, Tech Nomads, that's one word, tech nomads, Neo-Minimalism, Cult of Less. And then there's this book here. Oh, and the website's shareable. And then there's this book, which is called What's Mine is Yours, The Rise of Collaborative Consumption. I don't think this baby's out on the shelves yet, but since, I write crap like this, I got this a little ahead of the time. This is a super interesting book. Not because it's correct, but because it's extremely erudite. I mean, the two people who wrote this book are very active on the net, and clearly they've been hitting Google for about 5 years, just cataloging every sign of people's discontent, popular discontent, with consumerism. I mean, just, classic capitalist consumerism. And there's a lot of new problems with it that are starting to break in new and interesting ways. So, why do I consider that significant? Well, it's not because there are dropouts who no longer like to buy stuff. I mean, that is not news. So that's very Henry David Thoreau, and there are Buddhists who take an oath, and there are Franciscan vows of poverty. There's nothing particularly exciting about a minimalist, non-materialist, vaguely hippie lifestyle. What's interesting about these groups whose names I recited, is their complete and just total dependence on a ubiquitous digital support system. Without the net and without social networking, this stuff does not function at all. But with those things, this is what looks like a kind of mainstream, almost Alvin Toffler style, groundbreaking business book. And to me, that's of great interest because I did not really expect to see that happen. I thought SPIMEs were going to come from some particular area of practice. I had it figured it would be Walmart, which is heavy retail, or the military, because the Pentagon is also very interested in the Internet of Things, or perhaps academia, because MIT coined the term Internet of Things, or it might have come from emergency camps where people need a lot of rapid delivery of objects, or it could have even come from prisons or from warfare. But the idea that it would come from people simply going broke and then realizing they could spend a lot less money on stuff and a lot more on being on the net, that did not occur to me. And that really looks sort of, that's an interesting space, you know? I mean, that's something going on in 2010, 2011 that I didn't foresee. It catches me a bit by surprise. I think it's got some legs. There's a lot of things going on there. I think it's the most interesting thing I could tell you, about the future of technology and where it's going. There's some kind of overlap between these new neo-minimal movements and fads and ubiquitous computing. And it's going to play out in some very interesting ways. And if you want to follow that, so to see where it's going, you can read my blog. There's a lot of weird stuff on my blog. If you don't have time for the blog, you can follow me on Twitter. Okay, I'm Bruce S. I have a private account on Twitter because I hate being data mined. But if you ask, I'll be happy to put you on. And I'm planning to follow this. And I think there's going to be some legs here. I think we're going to be excited. It's going to last at least as long as this particular depression lasts, and this depression's going nowhere. So thank you for your attention, ladies and gentlemen.